Hi, I'm Dr. Michelle Pedicola, the creator of Secrets of Life and Death and No Regret Now and Magnify Your Mission. Today I want to talk to you about becoming unstuck and unstoppable. By that I mean living passionately on purpose. There are a number of things that get in the way of us living on purpose and passionately. I'm going to focus on one in particular, and that is loss due to the death of somebody close to us, somebody that we are connected with, often a partner or a parent or even a child. You know that you are stuck when it just feels like it's going on too long, when you feel like you don't want to get up in the morning, when you dread coming home to an empty house, when you dread the weekend because there's nothing that you can do that will distract yourself. Or maybe you spend a lot of time in front of the TV, or you eat too much, or you do a number of different things to kind of tamp down the feelings. You know that you're stuck when your friends start asking you if you're ready to move on. You know that you're stuck when you feel like it's gone on too long. So what to do? I know the territory. I have gone through losses myself. I lost both my parents in the same year, 6 months apart. I also was a hospice support group facilitator and coached people around major life challenges for over 20 years. I produced the documentary film Secrets of Life and Death, in which I explored people losing their lives, people caregiving those who are losing their lives, and the grief that follows. And you can actually check that out on my website, secretsoflifeanddeath.com. I want to share with you two important components of grief and loss that will change your perspective of what's going on for you and give you some ideas about how to approach it. So the first thing is, well, the first they are body and brain. You want to understand that the body responds to grief and loss biologically. That is, there is a physiological response to a loss. It's not optional. The body produces chemicals in response to a significant broken bond. That's because we are social beings and we are wired to bond. So when a significant bond is broken, it triggers a survival response. And chemicals are released into the body to prepare the body to fight, flee, or freeze. Of course, you understand that there is nobody to fight, there's nowhere to go, and there's nothing to do. So that mechanism is not particularly effective, but it does get triggered. And there is a release of chemicals, and you need to be able to release those emotions and not hold them back. Because if you don't, you can actually get sick. It can compromise your health. It can hold you back. Unfortunately, everything that we're taught from the time that we're children is all about tamping the emotions down, putting them aside, getting back into your life right away. This is a big mistake because the emotions don't go away. They just kind of get hidden in your cells. And then when you have a new loss, they all come popping up like a jack in the box to plague you again. So that's one of the things that I work with people on, is how to release the emotions so that you don't get overwhelmed, but that they get processed through the body. The other component that I talked about is the brain. So the brain and the body work in tandem, hand in hand. So when the body feels yucky, which it will, there are a number of reasons why the body feels yucky when you're in grief. Number one, when you lose somebody that you have spent a lot of time with, that is interwoven into the fabric of your daily life, it has a huge impact on your brain. Your brain gets very disorganized. It's a little like when you overload your computer processor and it goes offline. Well, the same thing happens with your brain. It's got all these neural network patterns that are associated with that person that you're bonded with. And when that person is gone, it's like you're traveling down that neural net and you suddenly come to this big void. And you keep on going back into the past, back into where it was comfortable, where it was, where it used to be. And that only triggers that emotional feeling of loss again. So it actually takes quite a while for the brain to create new neural networks to, to accommodate the loss. So that's number one. Number two is what I already talked about, that fight, flee, freeze mechanism, that your body is actually trying to protect itself. And number three, in bonding, our body creates this really great feel-good hormone called oxytocin. Every time you hug somebody, every time you look into that person's eyes with love and affection, your body it produces oxytocin, which feels great. And when you lose that bond, you lose that oxytocin. So those three reasons end up making you feel just awful. Now, of course, the body is really trying to get you to rebond because that's the best way for you to survive, is in a bonded relationship. Of course, Mother Nature is not taking into consideration that there are a lot of things that are involved in getting rebonded again, and you might not be ready to do that right away. So then back to the brain. The brain, as I said, works in tandem with the body. So when the body's feeling bad, the brain jumps in with a whole bunch of reasons for why you feel bad. Oftentimes, it goes into very catastrophic places like, oh, I'm never going to love again. It's too late. I'm too old. I'm going to feel like this until I die. I'm miserable. There's no hope in my life. And when your brain comes up with these thoughts, the body doesn't know the difference between your thoughts and what's actually real and out there. So it re-triggers the survival response. And you can really get caught up in this loop of loss, feeling loss, thinking loss, feeling loss, thinking loss, and it can go on and on and on. This is one of the reasons why when we get into our sadness, our grief, the actual sobbing and crying, that it goes on and on instead of stopping, is that we keep on re-triggering it with our thoughts. So it's important actually to start working on both your body and your brain early on, because the brain is in this process of adapting to the new situation. And sometimes it adapts in a way that would not necessarily help you to move on. When I first started doing a hospice support group, I came to a group that was already pre-existing. And the women there, some of them had been there for 2 and 3 years. And these women had enshrined their husbands. And they all sat around talking about how miserable they were that their husbands no longer were around. I invited them to change, but they were already habituated to that identity as the grieving widow. It was a way in which they could get attention and sympathy, and they were not interested in changing. I do not work with people like that. I work with people that want to move forward in their lives. So those women left, and I got new people who were interested in making changes. When I work with my high-end clients, I enable them to release their emotions and work on their mindset. I had a woman who came to me who had been grieving the loss of her husband for 20 years. She had gone to see psychotherapists and counselors and grief coaches, and every time she would see her son, she would burst into tears because he reminded her of her husband. We worked together for 4 months, and not only did she stop the grieving, stop crying every time she saw her son, but she actually got reinvested in her life, reconnected, reintegrated into living a life on purpose. I had another woman who had actually lost her husband 60 years before, but she had never grieved the loss of her husband. As a result, it trashed all of her relationships with her daughters and later her granddaughters because she had never dealt with that grief. And that's what happens when we don't deal with our grief. When we tamp our feelings down, we cut out all our feelings. And therefore, we are not able to enjoy life. And we actually become one of the walking dead. Anyway, I worked with this woman and enabled her to grieve the loss of her husband, and in fact actually went back into her early childhood and healed some of those patterns so that she was able to restore her relationships with her children and granddaughters. What I have found is that oftentimes people who get stuck in grief, they have early emotional wounds that also need to be addressed. And that is one of the gifts of grief, is that grief becomes an opportunity for us to clear out and clean out all the old losses that we have never addressed before, that we maybe had to tamp down when we were children because it wasn't safe to allow ourselves to grieve. So grief can become a gateway to clearing out all business so that you can step into your true, authentic power. Now, there's one more thing I want to point out, that oftentimes the things that we learn in childhood that are what you might call coping mechanisms for surviving can actually become our gifts and tools for fulfilling our purpose in life. If you found this interesting, I would like to invite you to have a conversation with me to see how I might be able to help you around your grief and loss, to see if we're a fit. So you can do this by going to the URL, meetwithdrmichelle.com. That's meet, M-E-T, with Dr. D-R, Michelle, MICHELLE.com, and go ahead and schedule an appointment with me. A half-hour appointment, and we'll talk and go on from there. I hope you enjoyed this, and bye for now. Come back again when I talk about other kinds of losses that get in the way of our becoming or being passionate and on purpose. Bye for now.